Learn, experiment, achieve, and take off. We're anthropologists and social scientists who put leaders under the microscope. We are your eyes and ears to dig up the most valuable insights for success to help make you and your business better. We give you the tools to lead your future and help build leaders we all want to look up to. So, rise to your potential. Launch. Welcome. I'm Rebecca Bennett, your host. Today we have CEO of one of Family Network's, Erin Beck, on the podcast today. Erin is a friend of mine, and we met at the International Business Accelerator at USC last fall of 2019. And when I met Erin, the first thing I noticed was her high level of energy and contagious enthusiasm. We were both looking at global opportunities for our businesses in this accelerator, and I have come to know Erin as this extremely intelligent, focused, and driven person. She was always happy to listen and help and give friendly entrepreneurial advice, and thus our friendship was born. Erin is an exemplary leader and always has great advice to offer to business owners. In particular, she has not only created a very unique business model, but has successfully acquired 2 other companies into her startup, in which she demonstrates the importance of collaboration with your competitors. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much. I don't know how I'm going to follow that up.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
So let's have you share with our listeners your story on how you got into entrepreneurship before we jump into the Wana story.
Sure. Well, Wana was the first startup that I was a part of that felt like a startup. And the reason for that was so much because I wanted to have a lifestyle that was mobile, where I could do the work that I loved doing from anywhere in the world. My husband and I had just gotten back from taking a year-long world globe-trotting sabbatical trip around the world. And we had been 5 continents over 15 months with nothing but a backpack. And it was exhilarating being able to live in a way that you were constantly surrounded by people that challenged your perceptions of the world, perceptions of yourself. You wanted to live the way that you believed was possible, and to be challenged in that every single day and always be reformulating and reprocessing. Said, I want to live like this always. And when I have children, I don't want that to stop. I want to continue living like this always. And that was one of the main impetuses for us finally coming back and resettling in Los Angeles, California, at least for a period of time. But we never felt like we stopped traveling. We just settled in a new place for a while to continue experiencing that place as if we were still travelers. And by the time she's 4 now, but I think by the time she was 2, she'd been in 4 countries already. She'd crossed both oceans. And because I want her to have that same perception that she can be anyone she wants to be, and to be able to see examples from all over the world that what you're faced with and what you perceive around you is not the only possibility. Mm-hmm. And so to be exposed to lots of new things all the time. And if you're going to have a lifestyle like that, you need to be able to pick up your work and your laptop and take it with you wherever you want to go. And I had enjoyed an incredible 6 years at SpaceX. And they were about 800 employees. I think I was 840 something when I started in 2010. Uh-huh. And they had 5,000 by the time I departed in 2016. And there you certainly work like a startup. And there would be many nights in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where I would go into the clean room and I would see the sun go down and come up multiple times before I left to go back to the hotel room through the tiny window in the side of the hangar. And my husband and I did that together. So we would travel back and forth from coast to coast, and it was outrageously fun, but not what I wanted when I had kids, and not what facilitated this lifelong process of learning through travel. And when I looked at options for that, that allowed me to have the remote lifestyle, to be where I wanted to be, with who I wanted to be, wherever that was at any time, and also had the potential to be financially sustainable, entrepreneurship really just seemed like the only option. So at the time where I had my first child, my daughter, I was looking for something that, what's the big idea? What is that big thing that I'm going to chase? And I had a long list of things that I wanted to do. I'd started making logos and slogans and websites for many different, we had a, oh gosh, and we're still going to do this. I'm really excited about this one, but we had one where we were going to have a global chain of hostels slash small theater music venues. We actually worked on that one for a while. I was really excited about that. But when my daughter came, I could not get headspace to think about anything, because no longer having a corporate job meant that I no longer had money. So I could no longer afford a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I can't solve any other problem in the world until I solve my own childcare problem. And it needs to not just be cheap, it needs to be free, because that's the bracket and the world that we're living in. So let's go do that. And so Wana Family Network became the thing.
So you wanted just was literally derived out of solving your own problem.
Completely. And to me, that is still the most important thing. People ask me so often, well, how do you choose what idea to work on? Or how do you choose when to leave your company, or when it's not going right? Or how long do you stick with this entrepreneurship thing? Because there's, this as a founder yourself, there's nothing easy about going into a career where you don't know what you're doing every single day and you have to solve the problems anyway. It is so much fun. And it is so hard. How long do you keep doing it? And for me, the lifestyle of being a founder still allows me to spend the most amount of time with my family. And therefore, I have achieved the end that I sought through this means. And so I could do this into perpetuity, because it has achieved the lifestyle that I dreamed of. And as long as that is still true, then that means being a founder is right for me, and running this company is the right step.
What a great story. I'm curious, so one was kind of a problem that you were looking to solve for yourself personally, and then you had to go about scaling that outwards, finding a whole community that had that problem. So I want to talk about how you came up with this. First of all, tell the audience, what is the business model that you're operating on, and how you came up with it, and how does it work?
Yeah. Okay. So Wana Family Network hosts a mobile marketplace for family to family babysitting exchange. What that basically means is it's a mobile app for a great big babysitting co-op. Those family to family exchanges that were super popular in the 80s, except in the 80s, you used an Excel spreadsheet to manage everybody's hours and times and membership. And you traded back and forth Chuck E. Cheese tickets with stamps on the back in exchange for each hour of babysitting you did for somebody else. And when I tried to bring this model into my community in 2017, they were none too excited about the idea of Excel spreadsheets and Chuck E. Cheese tickets with stamps on the back. And it was clear that a modern mobile app-based solution is what was going to be required to make that sort of community care appealing to our audience now, and to our sensibilities now. So the part about Wana that's really exciting to me is that if you join and you always babysit back for other people, so you give and receive in kind, it is always free. And that to me was what got me excited in the first place. And it's one of the things that still keeps me really excited about it. I thought that if you were volunteering your time for other families, you deserve free babysitting. That just seemed like that was the way that it should be. And then we had to figure out, if that was going to be the forever free fundamental tenet of WANA, then how do we monetize the company?
Mm-hmm.
So what we find through research, and now we find through our own membership, is that the behavior of different families on the platform tends to be pretty consistent. Some of us are matchers, where we do give and receive in kind. Some of us are givers, where we just have a little more time to give and we volunteer more care than we receive. And some of us are takers, where we end up receiving more care than we're able to give. And there's always a good reason for that. It's a lot of single parents or dual working households, or, right now in the time of COVID, we see it in a lot of essential workers who in a healthcare system might be working 60, 80, 100 hours in a week. I wanted to create a place where no matter what type of lifestyle yours was, whatever you had to do to make your family successful, there was no judgment on that, and you could still achieve free or affordable care. So for those who end up running out of care points because they don't have time to reciprocate, we introduce the ability to purchase those time credits through the platform. And that model is patent pending. I adapted that method actually from mobile gaming, from Pokemon Go, because when we were just starting WANA, I was spending a whole lot of time with an infant in a wrap, walking around bored up and down the sidewalk, playing Pokemon Go to keep myself occupied while she took her naps in those very early days of motherhood. And I said, well, this is just brilliant because this is a free experience. But if I want to accelerate my experience, then I can buy into it. And that's entirely my choice. And what if we could do that with babysitting? It's entirely free, but if you need an extra boost to gain more time, you can buy into it, but you get to choose that. So you get to choose how to keep the babysitting costs entirely within your own family's means, and you can still get all the care that you need. So we charge below market rate, so that even if you're purchasing all of your points, it's still costing you less than it would if you went through some other for-hire platform, which also are places of great value and fantastic caregivers. It's just a different model.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing about WANA's business model that gets me excited.
Yeah, from what you're talking about, it's got a lot of components to it that work in its favor. I like the volunteerism aspect, just allowing people to have a place to give back. And then also giving the opportunity for people to decide how much they want to spend based on how much time they're willing to give back. So leaving the choice up to them, I think is really a thing that resonates with a lot of people these days, especially I want to say millennials, which are leading the way on this in wanting to have a choice in how they move forward in life. So I think it's a really wonderful model. I'm curious, Erin, no startup comes without challenges. And I was hoping you would share with us some of your early on startup challenges. What are some of the first hurdles that you tried to get over?
The biggest hurdle that I started with was having I had a certain amount of funding available to me. We had saved, I had money set aside, and I said, this is what I'm going to use to get my startup started. And some of what I thought I could do with that was outsource my team and the team building process. I thought, as a solo founder, I have so much that I have to think about in forming this company to begin with. If I can hire outside teams, then they've already done the team building, they've already got the management built in. I think that will get me a superior product. And in order to do that, you have to have money to be able to pay these external teams. And so I did that. And I did that for about a year. And what turned out at the end of that year is I had some of a product, but not all of one. I had some things working, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was out of money. And so the team was gone, and there was almost nobody left but me.
Uh-huh.
And so here I am. I've spent a lot of money, I've spent a lot of time, and everything evaporates except whatever product was left over. Kind of in the as the dust settles,
Uh-huh.
and you realize that creating a startup takes more than just a chunk of cash and running really fast and putting a year of time in. And you say, wait, this is a really, really long-term process, and how do I make this sustainable?
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate to have one developer by my side and one technical advisor. And I had a growing relationship with a local university through an incubator that I joined. And I was broke. So we're coming around December. I maybe have $1,000 left in the bank account. I can basically keep the servers running. That's it. And I'm not using any other I turn off my QuickBooks. I turn off most of my Google Suite. Just everything comes down. I say, how long can I keep this company running? I can keep the servers running through August. I have 8 months. What am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I started making the really smart decisions, or the decisions that in the end turned out to be impactful. And I started taking risks on I started taking risks on how I built my team. And what I mean by that is I started really putting my faith in the growth of other people. So the first thing that I did was partner with this university. It was Cal State Dominguez Hills, in Los Angeles and Carson, and partnered with them to bring on 5 interns through an academic partnership. So they received academic credit. They worked for WANA for free. And they showed up every week for a term to do whatever it was that we were working on that week. And most of what I asked them to help me with was business development and marketing. We needed to get our social media channels up. We needed to do more customer research and really understand what people were asking for in their childcare needs. We had a podcast running very actively for WANA at that time called Millennial Fam. They helped us with the Millennial Fam podcast. And a lot of these students were in their first year of college, had never had an internship before, had no entrepreneurship experience. And when you're hiring your team, and say you listen to Masters of Scale, which is a fantastic podcast for founders, and Reid Hoffman's montage at the beginning always says, you need the best talent at every position. And as a founder, you're going, how do I find the best talent? And this founder is saying, can you give me a college freshman, please, who is just getting through their initial GE requirements? And I was so inspired by how hard they worked, by everything that they had to give, even if they had to learn every single skill they contributed, they had to learn from scratch. But they showed up every single week. And so I showed up every single week. And the 6 of us together became a team. And for the first time, I really felt like we had something that was long lasting. And what it had cost was time and faith and, all of the things that you grow a startup out of when the bank is dry.
Yeah.
From that, it gave me the courage and the confidence and the need, because I felt like if I had these people working for me, I had better give them something to do. So I had better find the people that will help me build the rest of this platform. So I went searching for technical co-founders. I was able to bring them on in equity positions where we could work together to the point where we were about to have a new product coming out, and we were able to achieve our first investor funding. And that first funding came in not 3 months, not 3 months before the company would have shut down.
Oh, goodness.
Right.
Yeah.
And it, but, and since then, you know, well, and then that was last year. That was just over a year ago. And what an exciting time that we've had since then. But the most important thing for me to learn was that there's a lot of value in being a scrappy startup entrepreneur.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in not throwing money at the problem and believing that that's the way that you solve the problems. There's a lot of value in investing in your team, even though that is time consuming, even though you haven't built a team like that before. It is extremely valuable. um, and there are fantastic third party vendors out there, that one can partner with. You find the right one and you're in a fantastic position. For me, what I really needed was an internal team, and I needed a team that when funding was great, they were right there. When funding wasn't great, they were still there. Where people who, when times got difficult, would still be there working just as hard as they were at the beginning. That's what a real startup team is about.
Uh-huh. Wow, wow. What an amazing story. You're so right. Just being forced in that position where you were starting to run out of funds, you were forced to take on risks that probably were new or different and uncomfortable, and just be resourceful. And I think finding that opportunity to have interns work for you through the university was a really genius idea, because not only are you getting the labor, the help that you need, but you're also able to give back to them in helping them to learn real life skills. So that's a really nice kind of mutual exchange that you set up there.
It's something we've been able to continue to do, which I'm really excited about. If you guys haven't looked at the Pledge 1% program, it is an awesome program to look at. And we dedicate and pledge 1% of our time to education as a company. So we have continued to take on a team of interns every term, even as our team has grown, and there's no longer a direct necessity.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to continue giving back in an educational capacity to students in general, and also to these institutions that were so fundamental to our early growth. So we've hosted interns in California and in Ohio. I think we've had over 20 now over the last couple of years.
Oh, wow. That's great. I know, so you mentioned that once you got your product out the door, you were able to land that funding. And I know fundraising is one of the challenges that startups at some point come along and across in their journey. And so I want to learn a little bit more for our audience about how you went about landing that funding.
And you've heard this story before, and it's one that I love to get the opportunity to tell, because it so shattered my perception of what I thought startup funding was all about. What I was somehow coached in was, what you need to do as a founder out the gate is start searching for someone who can give you 12 to 18 months of runway at a time, so that you can move forward on your startup, focus totally on the product and not on fundraising. Now that sounds like an amazing idea. Everything about that sounds awesome. But there is an oversaturation of startups out there who are looking for this type of institutional funding. And now I don't know if these numbers are going to come out exactly right, but the philosophy comes out the same, which is they say that 9 out of 10 startups fail, that only 10 startups that start actually succeed. But they also say that only 1 out of 100 startups gets funded. Well, but that means if you take 100 startups and 10 of them make it, that means that 9 of them make it without funding. Well, then why am I striving to be the one when there are 9 of them that made it without it?
Mm-hmm.
And I came face to face to this. I came face to face with this starting in that December, and this was December then of 2018, broke, and for Friday Coffee meetup in Pasadena, which is one of the best tech meetups in Southern California. If you're free, I think it's 8:30 in the morning every Friday. And they bring in tech professionals from all over the Los Angeles area, people that you've probably never heard of, but who have incredible stories to tell and enlighten the tech community of Pasadena every Friday morning, out of Pasadena. And I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to speak, and I met what turned into a very good friend there, and she offered us our first $10,000.
Nice.
And we're sitting in a coffee shop, and she says, I can write you a check. I believe in what you're doing. We can make this happen. And I said, I can't take that. And here we're broke. I have no money in the bank. And she's offering me $10,000, more money than I could have dreamed of. And I said, I can't take that. And I said, I can't take it because this isn't 12 to 18 months. Maybe I can get 2 months out of this, but then what? And then I haven't done what I needed to do for you, which is provide you a return, to provide you something that sustains. I can maybe kick myself in the pants for a month, and then we're done again. And that's not fair. So I'll go and see if I can raise more. But until then, thank you. And thank you for believing in me. And that's all that I could say. And spring comes along, and she says, look, I'm moving to Africa. So either you take the money or I'm giving it to somebody else. And I said, fine. And it was the best $10,000 that I ever took, because just having that little bit, I immediately distributed that to our team members. And I wasn't able to make anyone a full paycheck, but I was able to at least get them something, and giving them something was enough for me to say, you matter. What you're doing matters. And I will fight tooth and nail every day to be able to write you a check every month, because it is the greatest pride that I have as your CEO to be able to do that. Like, just the feeling of being able to take care of the people who are taking care of you was overwhelming. And taking one check meant that we got another one, and getting that one meant that we got two more. Mm-hmm. And then a few months later, we got six at one time. And it was, all of these wonderful things that kind of snowballed into one after another that I never could have predicted. But what I did learn was that people that are near to me, near to what we're doing, near to the everyday grind of founders and the beliefs and the mission that they have, they may be more willing to be the ones who write those first checks than institutional funders that have large lists of LPs that also need to be taken care of. There's huge value in our venture capital model, but they're also private investors who really believe in what startup entrepreneurs are doing. Mm-hmm. And being able to go $10,000 at a time, month by month, is certainly a stressor. It's not very stable, but it made our company possible. And from, the first employee that said yes, the first private investor that said yes, within 2 months of that, we had acquired the market-leading domestic competitor for cooperative care in the United States. 2 months later, we acquired the international leading competitor based out of the UK, but leading the international market for cooperative care. And then by the end of the year, we had done an acqui-hire partnership with our largest local competitor, who led in partnerships for cooperative care in the United States, particularly in Southern California, and went from having a platform with 300 people on it who were mostly my friends that did not work, to having full production mobile apps, 4-star, both platform, with 23,000 families who'd swap tens of thousands of hours of free care. And we brought together a brain trust of 5 founders who believed in collaboration over competition,
Mhm.
and combined 16 cumulative years of data, of product enhancements, of business strategy. And all of that started from a couple moments of saying yes, and again, taking risks. And in this case, it was her taking a risk on me, and it worked. So here we are today, rocking and rolling 1 year later, all from those kind of tiny little moments
Uh-huh.
1 year ago.
Oh, wow, Erin, that's such a fascinating story. And I know I've heard that before, but just hearing it again, it's just truly inspirational. Um, that's super exciting how just everything led into the next thing. But I want to back up just for a second and talk about, so after that first investor that you took the check from, you said that rolled into another check and into another check. Was that mostly like a word of mouth of how that worked, or like your network referring you out, or how much work was involved personally into dedicating your time to make that happen?
That was an incredible amount of work. And more than work, it's even courage. Um, when you are doing that private investor sort of funding, it's a lot of friends and family. And you really never know what the reaction is going to be when you go to a friend or a family member and talk to them about what you're doing, which you may not ever have even talked to them about before, and then move into a business relationship where it had been entirely personal before. Sometimes that response is very positive, sometimes it's not. I will say I've only ever had one not positive experience. Everyone else has been insanely supportive. But that is not an easy road. And it's something I think that you kind of have to know as a founder when you are going in, that some of the personal sacrifices that you are making are not just your time or not just your finances, but a lot of you gets rolled up in your company and a lot of your identity. And it's not necessarily that you're basing your self-worth on whether or not your company succeeds. But when I say you're rolling you into it, your friends and family become a part of this journey with you. And if you're going to succeed, you cannot do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And you must allow yourself to rely on these people in ways that you never imagined that you would. And there is personal cost and fear involved in that. The wonderful thing is that you find that your friends and family community around you support you in huge ways that you never imagined that they would. That is an amazing result of that.
Uh-huh.
But it's still a really hard thing to enter into.
Yeah.
So each one, anytime I approach any individual for investing in the company, I do it with great care. I often will sit on that email for a week or two before I send it to make sure I've chosen exactly the right words, exactly the right person, and exactly the right time. So a lot of work and a lot of thought and a lot of emotional investment. And you just have to do that right alongside all the other work of running the company.
Yep, well, right alongside the babies and family and all your other.
Yes, all of that part too. Oh, we're fundraising again right now, and I just hit 19 weeks. We're due in December. And I'm part of this incredible group of parents. They're not all women anymore. They were all women for a while. Now it's this incredible group of parents called the FamTech Collaborative, which is about 120 founders of family technology companies who have come together to put aside their competition and work in collaboration. And this includes Winnie, Urban Sitter, Hop, Skip, Drive, Clio, Mommy. If you are a parent that absorbs technology as part of your lifestyle, you have interacted with one of these companies. And every couple of weeks I get on there to say, okay, everyone, how did you do this? How did you run a company while pregnant at the same time? And no one has an answer for that, just mutual support. And that's enough. That's enough to get through.
So the takeaway I get from that story for listeners is to just don't be afraid and ask your family and friends. Just go for it, because it's hard. You don't know what their reaction is going to be until you have that conversation. And I really feel that having that conversation doesn't have a price until you actually start to create that business relationship, and then it's up to you to manage it. I want to talk to you, Erin. You were talking about how you acquired these other companies around you in the US, the UK, internationally, and it sounds like you almost had to scale overnight. You went from 300 customers to right now you're at what, about 20,000 or more?
About 25,000, yeah.
25,000. Can you tell us the story of how you scaled that from being small to now where you're at today?
You know what? It turned out to be, it would be silly for me to say it was easy, because that's not true. But because we had the collaboration of all of these other founders together, it really wasn't that big of a leap. And that sounds like such a strange thing to say. But for example, Kome. So if you actually look for Wana Family Network, it will direct you to an app called Kome, because Kome is our flagship product. That was the US market leader last year when we acquired them, and they're fantastic. It was a great app, so we kept using it. And one of the great things that happened when we formed the partnership with Kome is their two co-founders joined us at Wana for the best part of the next year while we did all of this integration and handoff. So their CEO, Audrey Wallace, came on as one of our advisors. And then their chief operating officer, Amy Husted, came on as our chief marketing officer. And she was able to continue the work that she had been doing for Kome while I learned how to operate at that capacity. So she took on a lot of the operations of the company while I continued to grow it, while I built the team, she was able to continue the operations of Kome in the same way that she had been for the last 4 years, while I worked on the growth of Wana Family Network with these other companies inside of us. So that was primarily building our design and technical teams, building up the intern strategy, building up our next partnership opportunities, and looking at how the business would grow from exclusively a consumer-focused babysitting cooperative provider to what is it that we're going to be next. And that's what we're really seeing coming to fruition this year. And it's really this summer in this time of COVID, where we're seeing a massive shift in the market, which is causing a massive shift in our business operations. And we're now hitting that scaling point where I'm going, oh, wow, okay, now I need to really start running and make sure that I can stay on top of what the market is demanding us to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's been a monumental shift this summer. But having the support of the other founders, being able to work with them, to learn from them, we took the best of all of those companies. That was the idea. And I was able to learn over the last year what made them so great. They were able to learn from us what made us so great. And it's choosing your acquisition partners is a difficult thing. The statistics on successful acquisitions are appalling. I mean, it is that the minority of them are considered successful. And I wish I could remember the real numbers for it. But when I went into the acquisition of Kome, I knew that there was a large chance of that acquisition not succeeding in one way or another, but it was an unmissable opportunity. What they had built in Kome could not be lost, because they had achieved in cooperative care what nobody else had been able to yet, which was a thriving ecosystem of families. They had built a great product. They were a couple of years older than us, a couple of years ahead. So I certainly hope Juana would have gotten there in a couple of years. But when it looked like Kome may cease to exist because their founders were looking to move on, I said, whatever the cost is, we have to make sure that this survives. And I believe that we have the leadership to make it not just survive, but to thrive for the long term. And I think in so many ways we just got very, very lucky that the founders became good friends. And that made it pretty simple.
For our audience, how did you go about finding these competitors, and what were the thoughts going on in your mind from the moment you're like, this is my competitor, I need to keep an eye on them, to, oh, wait, there's an opportunity to collaborate? What did that thought process look like, that journey?
What a fantastic question. The first time that Juana and Kome passed on the internet, we both knew about each other, but we hadn't ever talked to one another, and we talked to one another on accident, and we both went, oh, sorry, okay, bye. Sorry. It was so awkward. And the same thing happened with Helkin. Helkin was the final partner that we came together with at the end of 2019. Similarly, Helkin found us through Facebook, reached out to say hi, and we both were, oh, sorry, okay, sorry, not sorry. And then every once in a while, Shah Goodsafar was the founder of Helpkin. He and I would share snarky emails back and forth with each other on occasion every time Kome did something really great. And we would get their newsletter and we say, look what Kome did today. Aren't they so awesome? Because we were really tiny and they had 10,000 people and we were getting blown out of the water. And and it was, but what it was fear. Right? We were afraid of being, well, I don't think Shar was ever afraid. I was afraid of being out-competed. I was afraid that they would be so far ahead by the time I even really got started that we would never have a chance. And so I was closeted because of that. And the collaboration really didn't start until I got the email from Kome's founders that they were shutting down.
Oh, so they reached out to you.
They didn't reach out to me. They sent an email out to their user base. And I had signed up to use their platform actually before I founded Juana. And so I was on their user mailing list and I got this email, and I was sitting in my parents' kitchen at the dining room table. And I remember getting this email and starting to cry, because to me, it was a potential end to the mission of cooperative care, or not an end, but that those of us still in the game, we'd have to start over from scratch, because the company paving the way, the company that had been bearing the torch, was going away. And I said, that just can't happen. We can't let that happen. They've worked too hard. They've done too much great work. The rest of us are working too hard. We can't just let this idea that families should have access to free and affordable care go away. And I sat down and I sent them an email and we started a conversation, and here we are. But when that happened, I think we all just got so much joy out of coming together and realizing that there were, again, it's all about finding that there are other options other than what you think is going to be the one and only path. We realized that coming together, we could create something more. And we were so excited about it that we published the story. You can read about it on our blogs, because we wanted to share how excited we were about this. And Sitster in London actually reached out to us and said, I've also been thinking about transitions for my company. I would like to have an experience like you had. And Amy and I flew out to London to hang out with Laura, who's the founder of Sitster, and shared an incredible meal and an incredible weekend of getting to know one another and becoming friends. And it was another feeling of, yeah, this just feels right. And again, we turned something bigger out of pieces that had been small. It was shortly after this that I joined the FamTech Collaborative, and became a leader in growing the community within Los Angeles, because I was seeing the potential of what was happening as these cooperative care platforms came together. I thought, well, what if companies from across the childcare sector or even across the family technology space came together? And I loved to see that I was not the only one thinking that. I was certainly not the first one to think about that, and found all these other really incredibly powerful founders who were leveraging that same type of generous spirit, that with generous spirit we come together to rise the tide for all ships, to raise the tide, to rise the tide, to raise the tide.
Raise the tide.
That with generous spirit we all come together to raise the tide for all ships. And yeah, I mean, now that's just the way that we try to do things. And I want to put that into some kind of practical business terms, because obviously a competitor is a competitor. It's not like, but you can be friends with your competitors without sharing all of your business secrets. You can share some best practices that should be universal across the industry without giving away whatever the secret sauce of your company is. And you never know who will become the torchbearer for you, or if you will be called upon to do that for others. And when you allow yourself to have real relationships with the other people in your space, that creates the opportunities for future partnership. And that's exactly what happened with Shar. He sent me an email and said, "Hey, I read your stories. You seem like good people. We should have lunch." And I said, "You seem like good people too. Let's do that." And then it turns out that he was a theater major too. And we both loved Disneyland. And he taught me how to get a SoCal annual pass. And when we took our partnership photos, we went down to Cars Land and took our pictures there together to celebrate the way that our friendship had started. And we had this fantastic lunch together, realized that we adored one another. And then it was 3 months later that he called and said, "Hey, I'm looking for new opportunities for Helpkin. What do you think this looks like as part of Wanna Family Network?" Because you just never know. People I love spending time with are the founders from Carefully and the founders of CareSplit and the new cooperative care platforms that are coming behind us, because who knows what's coming down the pipeline. And I like to be surrounded by people that I love working with, whether they're my competitors or not.
It seems like, from what I'm hearing, I'm seeing a common theme throughout the Erin journey of Wanna, and it's that for our listeners, what Erin really exemplifies is she's overcome a fear. She's gone beyond it to just go out and have that conversation, whether it is with family and friends to raise money, or whether it is to even have that conversation with a competitor, even if it's friendly, competitive banter right off the bat, making fun of some other player in the field. It's a great connection point. And it seems like, Erin, you've really nailed that. And I feel like a lot of our listeners can learn something from that.
It brings me joy. If you take it all the way back to the very beginning, why is it that you choose to do what you do? Because it fulfills joy in your life. So whatever happens, I will be the founder that does the things that bring me joy. And what I hope is that that also brings success.
What a great way to live by.
That's my hope.
Well, thank you so much, Erin, for coming on to the podcast today. If our listeners wanted to learn more about Wanna Family Networks as the co-op or connect with you, how would they do that?
Sure. You can reach out to me directly by email. That's the best way to catch me. It's Erin, ERIN, at wannafam.ly. WannaFam is WANAFAM.ly. That's also our web address. And if you wanted to check out the Babysitting Co-op app directly, you can go straight to mykome.com. Kome is KOMAE.
Well, thanks, Erin, and thanks for all the wonderful insights you brought to us from sharing your entrepreneurial journey with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. Don't forget to download the next episode so you can listen to it on your next commute or trip.
You can access more great insights and other goodies on our website at launchitspot.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there, which will notify you when we post the new goods. And of course, we always appreciate shares and likes by our listeners. Did you know that you can be featured on Launch? We are always looking for interesting people who are striving to become better leaders, as well as subject matter experts in any of our content categories listed in our nav bar. Believe it or not, your story can inspire so many people. All you have to do is quickly apply on our website and we'll be in touch. Now, how are you going to lead the world?